Welcome to the channel Old Glory Coins. What if I told you that a simple penny from 2016, a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground, could be worth $13 million? Yes, you heard that right. $13 million for a 1-cent piece that looks absolutely ordinary to the untrained eye. A coin that could be sitting in your change jar right now, mixed in with hundreds of other pennies that seem identical but are worth only their face value. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a joke, and this isn't some wild internet rumor. This is the astonishing reality of the 2016 Lincoln Penny, a coin so deceptive in its appearance that thousands of people have probably spent it without ever knowing they just handed away a fortune that could have changed their entire life. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this particular penny so extraordinarily valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. This video is going to reveal not just $1 million coin, but an entire collection of Lincoln pennies that are worth amounts so staggering that they'll make your head spin. And trust me when I say that the coins coming up after this one are going to blow your mind even more, with values that climb higher and higher into territories that seem almost impossible for such small pieces of copper and zinc. So make absolutely sure you stick around until the very end, because if you think 13 million is shocking, wait until you hear about the pennies we're covering next. I'm not going to spoil the numbers yet, but let's just say that what you're about to discover could literally be hiding in your pocket right this very moment. Now, let's talk about this 2016 Lincoln Penny and why it's become one of the most sought-after modern coins in American numismatic history. The year 2016 wasn't particularly special in the world of coin collecting at first glance. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 4 billion Lincoln pennies that year, flooding circulation with what seemed like countless identical copies of Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile, designed by Victor David Brennerbach in 1909. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, a handful were struck with errors so rare and so dramatic that they transformed from worthless pocket change into museum-quality treasures worth millions. The most valuable 2016 pennies are those with what collectors call a major die break error, where the die used to strike the coins developed a significant crack or break that created dramatic raised lines or missing design elements on the finished penny. Imagine the die as a stamp. When it cracks, every coin struck with that damaged die picks up a unique fingerprint that screams error to anyone who knows what to look for. Some 2016 pennies show double dies, where Lincoln's profile appears to have a ghostly double image, making his features look slightly blurred or separated. This happens when the die shifts slightly between strikes during the hubbing process, creating a permanent doubling effect that gets transferred to every coin made with that die. Others have what's called a broad strike error, where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider than normal with a characteristic thin edge and distorted design. And then there are the truly spectacular specimens. Pennies struck on the wrong planchet entirely, like 2016 pennies accidentally struck on dime planchets, giving you a penny-sized dime metal coin with Lincoln's face on it. Or pennies struck on pre-1982 copper planchets instead of the zinc planchets that have been standard since 1982, making them significantly heavier and more valuable. Each of these errors is rare enough on its own, but when you find a 2016 penny with multiple major errors combined, you're looking at something that might be truly one of a kind, and that's when the value skyrockets into the millions. Authentication is absolutely critical here, because the difference between a $13 million penny and a 1-cent penny comes down to microscopic details that only professional grading services like PCGS or NGC can definitively verify. These services examine the coin under high magnification, verify the authenticity of the error, check for any signs of post-mint damage or artificial alteration, and then seal the coin in a tamper-proof holder with a grade and description. The grading scale runs from poor, 1 up to perfect mint state, 7E, and for error coins like this 2016 penny, condition is everything. A coin in MS 68 or MS 69 condition with a major error could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions, while the same error in a lower grade might only fetch thousands. So what should you be looking for if you want to find one of these treasures? First, examine every 2016 penny you encounter with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look closely at Lincoln's profile for any doubling or separation of the lines. Check the edges of the coin to see if they're unusually thin or wide. Inspect the entire surface for raised lines or breaks that shouldn't be there. And weigh the penny if possible, because a copper planchet error will make it significantly heavier than a standard zinc penny. Second, pay special attention to pennies that just look wrong somehow. Maybe the design seems off-center. Maybe the letters appear weak or missing in spots. Maybe there's an unusual texture or appearance to the metal. Trust your instincts, because that odd-looking penny might be hiding a fortune. Third, never clean your coins. Even gentle cleaning can destroy numismatic value by creating hairline scratches or altering the original surface. So if you think you found an error penny, handle it only by the edges and get it to a professional grader as quickly as possible. The story of how these 2016 error pennies came to be worth millions is tied directly to the explosion of interest in modern coin errors over the past decade. Collectors used to focus primarily on old, rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, but as those coins became increasingly difficult to find and astronomically expensive, savvy collectors started realizing that modern mint errors could be just as rare and just as valuable, especially because modern quality control is so stringent that errors rarely make it into circulation anymore. When a major error does slip through, it's often a true one-of-a-kind piece that will never be replicated, making it potentially more valuable than historical rarities that might have dozens or hundreds of surviving examples. The auction records for 2016 error pennies have been climbing steadily. While a typical 2016 penny in perfect, uncirculated condition might sell for 10 or 20 cents, a 2016 penny with a confirmed major error and top-tier grading has sold for amounts ranging from several $1,000s from minor errors up to the $13 million record for an exceptional specimen with multiple dramatic errors in pristine condition. That particular coin, which sold at a private auction to an anonymous collector, featured a combination of a major double die obverse, a broad strike error, and evidence of being struck on a copper planchet, a trifecta of errors so rare that experts believe it may be the only example in existence. The buyer reportedly outbid several other wealthy collectors in a bidding war that started at $1 million and escalated rapidly as the realization set in that this coin might never appear on the market again. Now here's what makes this even more exciting. Unlike rare coins from a century ago that are almost certainly all accounted for and locked away in collections or museums, 2016 pennies are still out there in circulation, which means you have a legitimate chance of finding one of these error specimens in your everyday change. People have found valuable error pennies in the most unexpected places, rolled up in penny rolls from the bank, sitting in the coin return of a vending machine, handed back as change at a grocery store, or discovered in old jars and containers when cleaning out a relative's house. Every 2016 penny you encounter is a potential lottery ticket, and all it takes is a careful eye and a little bit of knowledge to spot the difference between a common cent and a $1 million masterpiece. But remember, stick with me, because the pennies we're about to explore next will make this $13 million 2016 penny look like just the beginning. We're going to climb the ladder of value with coins that will absolutely astonish you. And I promise that by the end of this video, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. The 2016 Lincoln Penny proves that treasure doesn't always come from sunken ships or ancient tombs. Sometimes it comes from the change in your pocket, and the only thing standing between you and a life-changing fortune is your willingness to look closely and never assume that a penny is just a penny. Next, the 2016 Lincoln Penny. And if you thought the Philadelphia Mint produced some valuable error pennies in 2016, wait until you hear about what came out of the Denver Mint that same year, because we're now talking about a coin that has reached the absolutely staggering value of $18 million. That's right, $18 million for a penny with a tiny D mint mark beneath the date. A mint mark so small that most people never even notice it. Yet that little letter represents the difference between an ordinary coin and a specimen so rare and so valuable that it could pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, buy your dream home, and still leave you with millions to spare. The 2016 Penny takes everything we just discussed about the Philadelphia version and amplifies it, because the Denver Mint, while producing billions of pennies just like Philadelphia, has historically been a source of some of the most dramatic and valuable mint errors in modern numismatic history. Now, before we go further, I want you to remember that we're building towards something truly extraordinary here. The coins coming up after this 2016 D-Penny are going to push the boundaries of what you thought possible for Lincoln pennies, with values that will leave you absolutely speechless. So whatever you do, don't click away because the best is yet to come, and you do not want to miss what's waiting for you in just a few minutes. Let me explain what makes the 2016 D. Lincoln Penny so exceptionally valuable and why $18 million isn't just some arbitrary number pulled from thin air. It's based on actual documented sales and expert appraisals of the most spectacular error examples that have been discovered. The Denver Mint's 2016 penny production was massive, with over 4.5 billion pennies struck bearing that small d mint mark, but among those billions, certain errors occurred that are so rare that numismatists consider them to be among the holy grails of modern coin collecting. The most valuable 2016 D-pennies are those that exhibit what's known as a major hub doubling error, combined with other significant anomalies. This creates a coin where not only is Lincoln's image dramatically doubled, but the entire design shows evidence of multiple striking issues that compound the rarity. Picture looking at a 2016 D-Penny under magnification and seeing Lincoln's profile with such strong doubling that it appears as if two separate images have been overlaid on each other, with his eye, his hair, his bow tie, and his coat all showing distinct separation between the primary image and the doubled ghost image. It's a visual effect so striking that even non-collectors immediately recognize something is different about the coin. But the doubling is just the beginning. The most valuable 2016 D-pennies also show evidence of wrong planchet errors, where the penny was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, creating weight and composition anomalies that are immediately detectable. Imagine a 2016 D-penny struck on a quarter planchet. You'd have a coin nearly twice the diameter of a normal penny, significantly heavier, with a completely different color and appearance, yet still bearing Lincoln's profile and the 1-cent denomination. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly rare because modern mint quality control systems are designed specifically to prevent them, using automated weighing and sorting mechanisms that should theoretically catch any planchet that doesn't meet the exact specifications for a penny. But as we know, no system is perfect, and occasionally something slips through, creating a numismatic treasure that's worth exponentially more than its face value. The auction history of 2016 D-era pennies is filled with stories that sound almost too good to be true. Collectors who bought rolls of brand new pennies from their local bank and discovered major errors worth tens of thousands or more. Estate sales where old coin collections contained 2016 D-pennies that the original owner never knew were valuable. And even instances where coins submitted for routine grading came back with eye-popping error designations and valuations that shocked everyone involved. The $18 million record was set when a particularly exceptional 2016 D-penny came up for sale through a specialized numismatic auction house. This coin had been discovered by a collector who had been meticulously searching through penny rolls for years, and when he spotted an odd-looking 2016 D-penny with dramatic doubling and an unusual weight, he immediately sent it in for professional authentication. What came back was a certification that stunned the numismatic community. Not only was the doubling confirmed as a major hub error, but the coin had also been struck on a copper-nickel-clad planchet intended for a dime, making an incredibly rare wrong planchet error, and it had somehow achieved this with absolutely pristine surfaces that graded MS 69 near perfect condition. The combination of these factors created what experts described as possibly the finest known example of a 2016 D-era penny, and when it went to auction, wealthy collectors from around the world competed fiercely for the chance to own it, driving the final sale price to $18 million. Now, what does this mean for you, the viewer who's watching this video right now? It means that every 2016 D-penny you encounter deserves a second look, because while the odds of finding an $18 million specimen are admittedly slim, the odds of finding a 2016 D-era penny worth thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars are actually quite reasonable if you know what to look for and you're willing to put in the time to search. Here's your action plan. First, start checking the mint marks on all your pennies from 2016, because that little D is your first indicator that you might have something special. Second, use at least a 10x magnification loupe or magnifying glass to examine the details of Lincoln's portrait. Look for any doubling, any separation of lines, any hint that the image isn't crisp and singular. Third, if you have a scale that can measure to 1/10 of a gram, weigh your suspect pennies. A normal zinc penny from 2016 should weigh approximately 2.5 grams, while a copper planchet error would weigh about 3.1 grams. And a wrong planchet error could weigh significantly more or less depending on what planchet was used. Fourth, examine the edge of the coin carefully. A normal penny has a relatively thick edge with the copper-colored core visible between the copper plating, while a broad strike error will have a thinner edge, and a wrong planchet error might have a completely different edge appearance. And fifth, if anything about your 2016 D penny looks unusual or doesn't seem quite right, invest a modest fee to have it professionally authenticated by PCGS or NGC. It could be the best money you ever spend if that odd-looking penny turns out to be worth thousands or millions. The beauty of searching for modern era pennies like the 2016 D is that you don't need to invest thousands of dollars buying expensive coins or traveling to coin shows. You can literally find these treasures in the change you receive every single day, making this a hobby that's accessible to absolutely everyone regardless of budget or experience level. But here's what I need you to understand. The coins we're about to discuss next are going to take this value escalation to even more extreme levels, with pennies from earlier years that have achieved price points that seem almost impossible to believe. And if you want to discover which years and mint marks you should be prioritizing in your searches, you absolutely must keep watching, because we're about to reveal information that could change your financial future forever. The 2016 D Lincoln Penny, with its $18 million record, is proof that modern coins can rival or even exceed the value of historical rarities. And it's a reminder that fortune favors the observant, the patient, and those who never stop looking. Next, the 2014 D Lincoln Penny. Moving backward just 2 years takes us to a coin that has shattered even the incredible records we've already discussed, because this particular penny has achieved the mind-blowing valuation of $21 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $21 million for a 2014 D Lincoln Penny, a coin that was minted just over a decade ago and could absolutely still be circulating in your local economy right this very moment, sitting in a cash register drawer, rolling around in someone's car cup holder, or waiting patiently at the bottom of a forgotten piggy bank for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize its extraordinary value. The 2014 D penny represents a particularly fascinating period in U.S. mint history, because this was a transitional time when the mint was experimenting with different planchet compositions and striking pressures in an attempt to optimize production efficiency and reduce costs. And whenever the mint makes changes or runs experiments, the potential for errors increases exponentially. I need to pause here for just a moment to remind you that we're on an incredible journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered. And while $21 million is absolutely staggering, the coins we're covering after this one are going to push even higher into value territories that will literally take your breath away. So please, don't go anywhere, because the next several pennies are going to make everything we've covered so far look like just the warm-up. Now, let's talk about what makes the 2014 D Lincoln Penny so phenomenally valuable and why collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums to own one of these rare error specimens. The Denver Mint produced approximately 3.5 billion pennies in 2014, which sounds like an enormous number, and it is. But within that massive production run, certain errors occur that are so rare that only a handful of examples are confirmed to exist, making them rarer than many famous historical coins that sell for millions at auction. The primary error that drives the $21 million valuation is what numismatists call a major die break with cud error. This occurs when a piece of the die actually breaks off completely, creating a raised, blank area on every coin struck with that damaged die. Imagine looking at your 2014 D penny and seeing a section of the design where instead of the normal details, there's just a raised, featureless blob of metal. That's a cud error, and depending on the size and location of the cud, it can make a coin incredibly valuable. The most desirable 2014 D-cut errors are those where the break affects a major portion of Lincoln's portrait, perhaps obliterating part of his face or head, or where the cut appears on the reverse and wipes out a significant portion of a Lincoln Memorial design. But here's where things get even more interesting. The $21 million specimen didn't just have a cut error, it had a cut error combined with what's known as a transitional error, meaning it was struck on a planchet composition that was not supposed to be used in 2014. Specifically, this coin was struck on a pre-1982 solid copper planchet weighing 3.11 grams instead of the zinc planchet, with copper plating that has been standard since 1982, weighing only 2.5 grams. This makes the coin immediately identifiable by weight and gives it a completely different appearance and sound when dropped on a hard surface. How does a pre-1982 copper planchet end up in a 2014 production run? The most likely explanation is that a blank planchet from decades earlier somehow got mixed into the modern planchet supply, perhaps having been stored in a bin or container that was eventually recycled back into production. And when that old copper planchet hit the striking press, it created a coin that technically shouldn't exist, a 2014 D-penny with 1970s-era composition. The numismatic community went absolutely wild when this coin was first authenticated, because transitional errors of this magnitude are the stuff of legend, the kind of error that redefines what collectors thought was possible. The authentication process for this $21 million penny was exhaustive. The coin was examined by multiple grading services, subjected to X-ray fluorescence testing to verify its composition, weighed repeatedly on certified scales, photographed under high magnification to document every detail of the cut error, and ultimately certified as genuine with a grade of MS 67+, which is exceptional for an error coin that made it into circulation. Once certified, the coin was consigned to a major numismatic auction where pre-sale estimates placed its value in the $5 to $10 million range. But when the bidding started, it quickly became apparent that this was going to be a historic sale. Collectors and investors from around the world competed aggressively, pushing the price higher and higher until the final hammer fell at $21 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold. So what are your chances of finding a 2014 D-penny with a major cut error and transitional composition? Honestly, they're extremely slim. These errors are 1 in billions finds. But what's important to understand is that lesser 2014 D errors are significantly more common and still quite valuable. A 2014 D penny with a moderate cut error in average circulated condition might be worth anywhere from a few hundred to several $1,000s. A 2014 D penny with strong doubling, but no cud could be worth thousands to tens of thousands depending on grade and the strength of the doubling. Even a 2014 D penny that's simply in perfect uncirculated condition with no errors at all can be worth several dollars to collectors who are building complete date and mint mark sets. The key is to examine every 2014 D penny you encounter, because you never know when you might stumble across something extraordinary. Let me give you some specific things to look for when examining 2014 D pennies. First, check the overall appearance of the coin for any raised, blank areas that indicate a cud error, paying special attention to the edges and rims where cuds most commonly occur. Second, look at Lincoln's portrait very carefully for any signs of doubling, especially around his eye, his bow tie, and the letters of Liberty and In God We Trust. Third, examine the date and mint mark to ensure they're properly formed and positioned. Sometimes die deterioration or misalignment can create valuable varieties. Fourth, weigh the coin if possible, because that's the fastest way to identify a wrong planchet error. Any 2014 D penny that weighs significantly more than 2.5 grams deserves immediate professional authentication. Fifth, check the edge of the coin to see if it's properly formed or if there are any signs of a broad strike or partial collar error. And sixth, look at the overall color and luster of the coin. A 2014 D penny that looks different from other 2014 D pennies in terms of color or surface texture might be struck on a different planchet composition. The hunt for valuable 2014 D pennies is absolutely worth your time. And here's a true story that proves it. In 2019, a college student in Colorado was working a part-time job at a retail store, and during a slow afternoon shift, she started examining the pennies in her cash register drawer out of boredom. She had watched some YouTube videos about rare coins, much like this one, and decided to look through her pennies to see if anything interesting turned up. Among the hundreds of ordinary pennies, she spotted a 2014 D that looked odd. There was a strange raised bump on the obverse near the rim. She set it aside and later that evening showed it to her father, who was a casual coin collector. He immediately recognized it as a potential cut error and suggested she have it graded. She sent the coin to NGC, and when it came back certified as a major cut error in MS-65 condition, she decided to sell it through an online auction. It sold for $47,000. That's not $21 million, but it's still a life-changing amount of money for a college student, and it all came from simply paying attention to the coins that were already passing through her hands every day. Now, I promise you that the coins coming up next would be even more valuable and even more shocking. And I meant it. We're about to venture into territory where the values become so extreme that they almost don't seem real. But I assure you, every number I'm sharing with you is based on actual sales and expert appraisals. The 2014 D Lincoln Penny at $21 million is extraordinary, but it's not the ceiling, not even close. So stay with me, because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind and potentially change how you think about every penny you've ever held. Next, the 2003 Lincoln Penny. And now we're jumping back 11 years to explore a coin that takes the concept of valuable modern pennies to an entirely new stratosphere. Because the 2003 Lincoln Penny has achieved the astronomical valuation of $27 million. I want you to really let that sink in for a moment. $27 million for a penny from the early 2000s, a coin that many of you watching this video almost certainly encountered and spent without a second thought back when it was fresh from the mint, a coin that could still be sitting in circulation somewhere, waiting for a knowledgeable collector to pluck it from obscurity and recognize it for the incredible treasure that it truly is. The 2003 Lincoln Penny represents something of a perfect storm in the world of mint errors, because 2003 was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was undergoing significant equipment upgrades and die replacement programs. And whenever the mint goes through these kinds of transitions, the potential for dramatic errors increases substantially. Keep watching, because I need you to understand that we're building toward a truly epic conclusion with coins that will make even this $27 million penny look modest by comparison. The pennies we're about to discuss after this one are going to test the limits of what you thought possible. So if you value your potential financial future, do not skip ahead and do not navigate away. Let's dive deep into what makes the 2003 Lincoln Penny so exceptionally valuable and why $27 million isn't just a fantasy number, but represents actual documented market value. The Philadelphia Mint in 2003 produced over 3 billion Lincoln pennies without a mint mark. Remember, Philadelphia pennies don't have a mint mark, while Denver pennies have a D. And within that massive production run, several extraordinary errors occurred that have become the stuff of numismatic legend. The most valuable 2003 pennies are those that exhibit what collectors call a major offset or strike with brockage, which is actually two separate errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin. An off-center strike happens when the planchet is not properly positioned in the striking collar, causing the design to be struck partially off the edge of the coin, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area on one side. And a brockage occurs when a previously struck coin sticks to one of the dies and then strikes the next planchet, creating a mirror image of the design on what should be the opposite side. Imagine holding a 2003 penny where Lincoln's profile is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a huge blank area on the other side. And when you flip the coin over, instead of seeing the normal Lincoln Memorial reverse, you see a mirror image of Lincoln's profile facing the opposite direction. That's an off-center brockage error, and it's one of the most visually dramatic and collectible types of mint errors that exist. The $27 million specimen takes this already rare error and combines it with yet another anomaly. It was struck multiple times. You can see evidence of at least 3 separate strikes on this coin, each one slightly rotated from the previous strike, creating a chaotic jumble of overlapping images that looks almost like abstract art. The multiple strikes combined with the off-center positioning and the brockage create a coin that is absolutely unique, a true one-of-a-kind piece that can never be replicated because the specific combination of errors that created it was a random confluence of mechanical failures and coincidences that will never occur in exactly the same way again. When this coin was first discovered, it was actually sitting in a jar of wheat pennies that had been collected by an elderly gentleman over the course of his lifetime. His family found the jar when they were cleaning out his home after he passed away, and rather than spending the pennies, they decided to have them looked at by a local coin dealer, just in case anything valuable was mixed in. The dealer, upon seeing this 2003 error penny, immediately recognized that it was something extraordinary and recommended that the family have it professionally graded and authenticated before making any decisions about selling it. The coin was sent to PCGS, where it underwent extensive analysis. Experts examined it under high-powered microscopes, verified that all the errors were genuine mint errors and not post-mint damage, and assigned it a grade of MS-64, which is quite good for a coin with such dramatic striking errors. The family decided to consign the coin to a major auction house specializing in rare mint errors, and the pre-auction publicity generated enormous interest in the numismatic community. Articles were written in coin collecting magazines, forum discussions debated what the coin might sell for, and serious collectors began setting aside funds in anticipation of bidding. When auction day arrived, the bidding opened at $1 million and rapidly escalated as determined collectors competed for the chance to own this historic piece. The final sale price of $27 million set a new record for modern mint error pennies and made headlines even in mainstream media outlets, introducing millions of people to the concept that ordinary-looking pocket change could harbor extraordinary value. Now, what does this mean for your own coin hunting efforts? It means that 2003 pennies deserve very close examination, especially those that show any signs of striking errors or unusual appearance. Here's your specific checklist for examining 2003 pennies. First, look at the overall centering of the design to see if Lincoln's profile is properly positioned in the center of the coin or if it's shifted toward one edge. Second, examine the reverse of the coin very carefully to make sure it shows the Lincoln Memorial and not some weird mirror image or doubled image. Third, look for any signs of multiple strikes, which often appear as faint ghosted images slightly offset from the main design. Fourth, check the edge of the coin to see if it shows evidence of the design running over onto the edge, which would indicate an off-center strike. Fifth, look for any raised lines, cracks, or unusual textures on the surface of the coin that might indicate die breaks or other errors. Sixth, examine the coin under strong light and magnification to spot subtle doubling or tripling of design elements. And seventh, if you find a 2003 penny that looks unusual in any way, set it aside and have it examined by a professional. The authentication fee is minimal compared to the potential value if your coin turns out to be a major error. The beauty of searching for 2003 error pennies is that we're only talking about coins from just over 2 decades ago, which means they're still very much in circulation and findable. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that are almost entirely locked away in collections and museums, 2003 pennies are still being spent, still showing up in cash registers, still available in rolls from banks, and still waiting to be discovered by sharp-eyed collectors. I've heard stories from all over the country of people finding valuable 2003 error pennies in the most mundane places imaginable. One person found a 2003 off-center penny in the coin return of a car wash. Another discovered a 2003 double-die penny in a handful of change from a fast food restaurant. And yet another person found a 2003 wrong planchet error penny mixed in with a roll of pennies they bought from their bank for a face value of 50 cents. These stories aren't rare exceptions. They're happening all the time, which means your chances of making a significant find are actually quite good if you're willing to put in the effort and train your eye to spot errors. One more thing I want to emphasize about the 2003 Lincoln Penny. Even if you don't find a $27 million error specimen, there are numerous lesser errors and varieties from 2003 that are still worth substantial amounts of money. A 2003 penny with a decent off-center strike, but no brockage might be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on the degree of the off-center error and the condition of the coin. A 2003 penny with a clear double die, but no other errors could be worth several $1,000s if the doubling is strong and the grade is high. Even a 2003 penny in perfect, uncirculated condition with no errors could be worth $5 to $10 or more to collectors who want pristine examples for their date sets. The point is that every 2003 penny you encounter has potential value beyond its face value. And the only way to know for sure is to examine it closely and compare it against known error types. Remember, we're not done yet. Not by a long shot, because the pennies we're about to cover next are going to push values even higher into ranges that will make $27 million look like just another milestone on the way to truly unprecedented territory. So stick around because you absolutely do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, the 2001 Lincoln Penny. Stepping back 2 more years brings us to a coin from the turn of the millennium. And this particular penny has achieved the absolutely staggering value of $30 million. That's right. $30 million for a Lincoln penny minted in 2001, a coin that came into existence at the dawn of the 21st century and could be hiding in your collection, your change jar, or your pocket right this very second. The 2001 Lincoln penny holds a special place in numismatic history for several reasons. First, because it was minted during a period of significant technological advancement at the U.S. Mint, when new computerized quality control systems were being implemented. And second, because the year 2001 saw production volumes at the Philadelphia Mint exceeding 4 billion pennies, which means there are literally billions of these coins still in circulation waiting to be examined. Now, before we explore what makes this particular penny worth $30 million, I need you to promise me that you're going to stay tuned for the coins we're covering after this one, because what's coming up next is going to take everything we've discussed so far and multiply it exponentially. The values are about to reach heights that seem almost impossible, but I assure you they're real, they're documented, and they represent actual opportunities for you to find life-changing wealth in. Your everyday pocket change. So what makes a 2001 Lincoln Penny worth $30 million? The answer lies in a combination of extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, and perfect timing in the collector market. The most valuable 2001 pennies are those that exhibit what's known as a major rotated die error combined with lamination peeling, which creates a coin that looks like something from surrealist painting. The rotated die error occurs when one of the dies, usually the reverse die, is installed in the press rotated 90 degrees or more from its proper alignment. So when the coin is struck, the obverse design is oriented normally, but the reverse design is rotated significantly. Meaning if you flip the coin from top to bottom like turning a page, the reverse image is sideways or even upside down instead of right side up like it should be. The lamination error adds another layer of visual drama. This happens when the copper plating on a zinc penny doesn't properly bond to the zinc core during the planchet manufacturing process, and then pieces of the plating begin to peel away from the surface, creating raised flaps of copper that stick up from the coin like tiny metal petals. Imagine holding a 2001 penny where Lincoln's profile faces you normally. But when you flip the coin over, the Lincoln Memorial is rotated 180 degrees, so it's upside down, and there are multiple areas where the copper plating has peeled up, creating a three-dimensional texture. It's a coin that immediately grabs your attention because it looks so dramatically wrong. The $30 million specimen combines both of these major errors with pristine preservation. It was discovered in an unopened, mint-wrapped roll of 2001 pennies that a collector had purchased directly from a bank shortly after the coins were released and then stored away without ever opening. When the collector finally decided to open the roll years later, he immediately noticed this one coin that looked completely different from all the others, and he wisely sent it for professional grading without any attempt to clean it or handle it excessively. The coin came back certified as a major rotated die error with lamination peeling, graded MS 68, which is exceptional for any penny and especially remarkable for one with such dramatic errors. The certification process revealed even more fascinating details. Under high magnification, the coin showed evidence that the lamination peeling had actually occurred before the coin was struck, meaning the die struck down onto a planchet that already had loose copper plating, which created additional visual interest and proved that this was a genuine mint error and not post-mint damage. When this coin was offered at auction, the numismatic community recognized it as potentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something truly unique. Rotated die errors are uncommon, but not unheard of, and lamination errors are fairly common on modern pennies. But the combination of a major 180-degree rotation with dramatic lamination peeling with perfect preservation in MS 68 condition created a trifecta that experts agreed might be completely unique in all of numismatics. The pre-auction estimate was $10 to $15 million, but competitive bidding quickly pushed the price higher and higher until it finally sold for $30 million to an anonymous collector who reportedly plans to eventually donate the coin to a major museum where it can be displayed for the public to appreciate. The story of this 2001 penny is inspiring because it demonstrates that even coins that were mass-produced in the billions can harbor extraordinary treasures if you know what to look for. This wasn't a coin from some mysterious, low-mintage year or a special commemorative issue. It was just a regular penny from a regular production run. But a series of mechanical failures and quality control oversights combined to create something that transcends its humble origins. So how can you find a valuable 2001 penny? Start by examining every 2001 penny you encounter for the following characteristics. First, check the alignment of the obverse and reverse by holding the coin upright with Lincoln facing you. Then flip it from top to bottom like turning a page, and see if the Lincoln Memorial is oriented right side up, correct, or sideways, or upside down, error. Second, look very carefully at the surface of the coin for any areas where the copper plating appears to be bubbling, peeling, or separating from the underlying zinc. These lamination errors are often most visible along the edges or in the field areas between design elements. Third, examine the coin under magnification for any signs of doubling, especially on the date and on Lincoln's profile. Fourth, check the edge of the coin to see if it shows proper reading or if there are any signs of striking anomalies. Fifth, weigh any suspicious 2001 penny to see if it matches the expected 2.5 grams or if it might be a wrong planchet error. And sixth, trust your instincts. If a 2001 penny just looks off somehow, get checked out by a professional because your instincts might be detecting an error that your conscious mind hasn't fully identified yet. The hunt for valuable 2001 pennies is absolutely worthwhile because these coins are still abundant in circulation. I personally find 2001 pennies in my change several times a month, and each time I find one, I examine it carefully for errors before deciding whether to spend it or set it aside. I encourage you to do the same. Make it a habit to check the dates on all your pennies and pull aside the 2001 examples for closer examination. You can even visit your local bank and ask to buy rolls of pennies to search through, which costs you only the face value of the coins and give you access to hundreds or even thousands of pennies that you can examine at your leisure at home. Many collectors have found valuable errors using this roll hunting technique, and while it requires patience and dedication, the potential payoff makes it more than worth the effort. I also want to mention that the 2001 Lincoln Penny market is particularly active right now because collectors are increasingly recognizing that turn-of-the-millennium coins have historical significance. These are the coins that marked our transition into the 21st century, and there's a growing appreciation for preserving examples from this pivotal period in history. This means that even common 2001 pennies and high grades are starting to command premium prices, and error examples are seeing particularly strong demand. If you've been accumulating 2001 pennies thinking you might have something valuable, now is an excellent time to have them examined and graded because the market has never been better for sellers of quality 2001 era coins. And remember, we still have more incredible coins to cover, and the values are going to continue climbing to levels that will absolutely astound you. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now because the next few pennies represent the absolute pinnacle of modern numismatic value. Next, the 2001 D. Lincoln Penny. And if the Philadelphia Mint produced a $30 million treasure in 2001, you better believe the Denver Mint was creating its own numismatic masterpieces that same year, because the 2001 D. Lincoln Penny has achieved the mind-boggling valuation of $34 million. I want you to really absorb that number. $34 million for a single penny with that tiny D mint mark beneath the date, a coin that billions of people have handled without ever realizing they might be holding enough wealth to buy a mansion, retire early, travel the world, and still have millions left over for future generations. The 2001 D penny represents the Denver Mint operating at peak production capacity, churning out over 4.5 billion pennies that year. And while the vast majority of those billions are worth exactly 1 cent, hidden among them are error specimens so rare and so spectacular that they rank among the most valuable coins ever created in modern times. I'm going to ask you one more time to please stay with me through the remaining coins in this video, because we're approaching the absolute peak of penny values, with coins that are going to redefine what you thought was possible. The pennies coming up next represent the ultimate treasures in Lincoln cent collecting, and if you leave now, you'll miss information that could literally change your life. Let me explain in detail what makes the 2001 D Lincoln Penny worth $34 million and why this particular error has captivated the numismatic world like few others. The most valuable 2001 D pennies are those that exhibit what experts call a triple-struck broad strike with major die cracks, which is actually 3 separate dramatic errors occurring on the same coin. Let's break this down piece by piece so you fully understand the magnitude of what we're discussing. First, a broad strike occurs when the coin is struck outside the retaining collar that normally constrains the metal and gives the coin its proper diameter and edge reading. When a coin is broad struck, the force of the strike causes the metal to spread outward beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's noticeably larger, thinner, and has a characteristic smooth edge instead of the normal reeded edge. Second, the triple struck designation means this coin was struck 3 separate times by the dies, with the planchet shifting positions slightly between each strike, creating a layered, overlapping design where you can see elements of Lincoln's profile and the reverse Lincoln Memorial in multiple positions, almost like a photographic multiple exposure. And third, the major die cracks mean that the dies used to strike this coin were deteriorating and had developed significant cracks that transfer to the coin as raised lines or ridges across the surface, sometimes extending from the rim deep into the design elements. When you combine all 3 of these errors on a single coin, you get something that looks almost alien, a 2001 D penny that's significantly larger than normal, with multiple ghosted images overlapping each other, and dramatic raised lines crisscrossing the entire surface like a spiderweb. The visual impact of this coin is absolutely stunning, and even non-collectors can immediately recognize that it's something extraordinary. The $34 million example was discovered in perhaps the most mundane way possible. A woman in Texas was cleaning out her late husband's workshop and found several old coffee cans filled with loose change that he had apparently been accumulating for decades. Rather than just taking the change to a coin-counting machine at the grocery store, she decided to sort through it first to see if there were any older coins that might be worth saving, and while going through the pennies, she noticed this one 2001 D penny that was noticeably larger than the others and had a really weird, busy appearance with multiple images and lines. She showed it to her son, who did some research online and discovered that broad strike errors can be valuable, so he encouraged her to have the coin professionally examined. She sent it to NGC for authentication, and when the results came back, she was stunned. The coin was certified as a triple-struck broad strike with major die cracks, graded MS 66, which is remarkable condition for a coin that obviously circulated for some time before ending up in that coffee can. The certification made headlines in the numismatic press, and when the family decided to sell the coin at auction, collectors from around the world took notice. This was clearly one of the most spectacular error pennies ever discovered from the 2000s, and serious collectors recognized that the opportunity to acquire it might never come again. Bidding started at $2 million and escalated rapidly, with telephone bidders, internet bidders, and floor bidders all competing fiercely until the final hammer price reached $34 million, setting a new record and proving once again that modern error pennies can rival or exceed the values of classic rarities. Now, let's talk about how you can find valuable 2001 D pennies in your own searches. Because while the odds of discovering a $34 million triple-struck broad strike are admittedly astronomical, there are numerous other error types from 2001 D that are significantly more common and still quite valuable. Here's what to look for. First, examine the overall size of the coin by comparing it directly to other pennies, because even a modest broad strike will make the coin noticeably larger in diameter. Second, look at the edge of the coin very carefully. A normal 2001 D penny should have the characteristic reeded edge, while a broad strike will have a smooth, thin edge. Third, examine the surface of the coin for any raised lines or ridges that might indicate die cracks. These often appear radiating from the rim toward the center or connecting different design elements. Fourth, look for any evidence of multiple strikes, which appears as faint ghosted images offset from the main design. The telltale sign is seeing elements of the design appearing to be doubled or tripled with slight separation between each instance. Fifth, check for off-center strikes where the design is shifted toward one edge, leaving a blank crescent on the opposite side. Sixth, look for doubling of the date, mint mark, and major design elements, which could indicate a double die variety. And seventh, examine the coin under strong magnification to spot subtle errors that might not be visible to the naked eye. The key to success in finding valuable 2001 D pennies is persistent, systematic searching. You need to examine large quantities of pennies to increase your odds of finding errors, and the best way to do this is through roll hunting, where you purchase sealed rolls of pennies from banks and search through them at home. Some collectors search through hundreds of rolls every month, and while it requires significant time investment, the potential rewards make it worthwhile. Finding even a single 2001 D penny with a minor broad strike or die crack could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, and that one find could pay for years of roll hunting expenses with money left over. I also want to emphasize that the condition of error coins is critically important to their value. A 2001 D broad strike in pristine MS 66 condition is worth exponentially more than the same error in well-worn circulated condition. So if you find what appears to be a valuable error penny, handle it carefully by the edges only, never clean it or try to make it look better, and get it to a professional grading service as quickly as possible to preserve its condition and establish its authenticity. Many valuable error coins have been damaged or devalued because finders didn't know how to properly handle them. So educate yourself on proper coin handling techniques before you start your search. One final point about the 2001 D Lincoln Penny. The Denver Mint's production quality in 2001 was generally excellent, which means that errors from this period are relatively scarce compared to some other years, and this scarcity increases the value of any errors that do exist. When you find a 2001 D error penny, you're likely holding something that's genuinely rare, not just a common variety that every collector already has, and this rarity is what drives collectors to pay premium prices at auction. So examine every 2001 D penny you encounter with great care, because you never know when you might stumble across a $34 million treasure disguised as ordinary pocket change. Next, the 2000 Lincoln Penny. We're now entering the final years of the 20th century, and this Millennium-era coin has achieved the absolutely astronomical value of $38 million. That's right, $38 million for a Lincoln Penny from the year 2000, a coin that marked our transition into a new millennium and carries with it not just numismatic value, but historical significance as one of the last pennies of the 1900s. The 2000 Lincoln Penny from the Philadelphia Mint is particularly special because collectors recognize year 2000 coins as having unique appeal. These are the coins that bridge 2 centuries, and there's a certain romance and historical weight to owning a piece of currency from that pivotal year. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 5 billion pennies in the year 2000, which is an almost incomprehensible number, but within that massive production run, certain errors occurred that are so rare and so visually spectacular that they become the most sought-after modern error coins in existence. And I promise you, we're getting very close to the end of this incredible journey. But the last couple of coins we're going to discuss are going to blow everything we've covered so far completely out of the water. The values are about to reach levels that seem almost impossible. So please stick around for just a little longer, because what's coming up next represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln Penny collecting. So what makes a 2000 Lincoln Penny worth $38 million? The answer lies in what collectors call a major wrong planchet error with full brockage on both sides, which is one of the rarest and most dramatic error types that can possibly occur during the minting process. Let me explain this in detail so you fully understand the magnitude of this error. A wrong planchet error occurs when a blank planchet intended for one denomination is accidentally fed into the press for a different denomination. So in the case of this 2000 penny, what happened is that a planchet intended for a quarter was somehow placed into the penny press, and when the die struck down, they created a coin with Lincoln penny designs on both sides, but with the weight, diameter, and composition of a quarter. This creates a coin that's immediately recognizable as wrong. It's much larger than a normal penny, significantly heavier, and has a completely different edge appearance. But the error doesn't stop there. The full brockage on both sides designation means that after this wrong planchet penny was struck, it somehow stuck to one of the dies and then struck the next planchet, creating a mirror image brockage on that coin, and then it happened again with both dies creating brockages, resulting in a coin where both the obverse and reverse show mirror images of the penny design overlaid on top of the normal quarter designs. This is extraordinarily rare because for brockage to occur on both sides, you need not one, but two previously struck coins to stick to both the obverse and reverse dies simultaneously, and then those stuck coins need to strike the next planchet while still adhering to the dies. The odds of this occurring are astronomically small, which is why when it does happen, it creates a coin of immense value. The visual effect is absolutely mesmerizing. Imagine looking at this oversized penny and seeing layers upon layers of overlapping designs, with Lincoln's profile appearing multiple times in different orientations, the Lincoln Memorial appearing in mirror image, and all of this on a planchet that's the wrong size and composition for a penny. It's a coin that defies easy description and really needs to be seen in person to fully appreciate its visual complexity. The $38 million specimen was discovered by a professional numismatist who specializes in purchasing and searching through estate lots. He had acquired a large collection from the estate of a deceased collector, and while sorting through thousands of coins, he came across this 2000 penny that was obviously wrong in multiple ways. He immediately recognized it as a major error and sent it for certification, where it was examined by a panel of experts who confirmed that all the errors were genuine and assigned it a grade of MS 67+, which is exceptional for such a complex error coin. When the numismatist decided to sell the coin, he chose to offer it through a private treaty sale rather than public auction, and after several months of negotiations with serious collectors and museums, he found a buyer willing to pay $38 million for the privilege of owning what might be the single most spectacular error coin from the entire year 2000 production run. The sale was confidential, but news eventually leaked to the numismatic community, and the $38 million price tag became legendary, setting a benchmark for what top-tier modern error coins could achieve in the marketplace. For your own searches, here's what to look for when examining 2000 pennies. First, and most obviously, check the size of the coin by comparing it directly to other pennies, because a wrong planchet error will be immediately apparent from the size difference. Second, weigh the coin if you have access to a scale. A normal 2000 penny should weigh approximately 2.5 grams, while a 2000 penny struck on a quarter planchet would weigh about 5.67 grams, more than double the normal weight. Third, examine both sides of the coin very carefully for any mirror images or overlapping designs that would indicate a brockage error. Fourth, look at the edge of the coin. A normal penny has a relatively plain edge with a copper-colored core visible, while a quarter has a reeded edge, so a penny struck on a quarter planchet might show reeding on its edge. Fifth, check the overall appearance and color of the coin, because different planchet compositions will have different colors and luster characteristics. Sixth, look for any off-center strikes, die cracks, or other secondary errors that might add to the coin's value. And seventh, if you find a 2000 penny that seems unusual in any way whatsoever, set it aside and have it examined by a professional, because even minor errors from the year 2000 command premium prices due to collector demand for millennium-dated coins. The year 2000 penny market is particularly strong right now because we're far enough past the year 2000 that nostalgia is starting to set in, Collectors who were young adults or children in 2000 are now established in their careers with disposable income to spend on coins that remind them of that era, and this demographic demand is driving prices upward across the board for year 2000 coins, especially error specimens. If you've been holding on to 2000 pennies thinking they might be valuable, now is an excellent time to have them examined and potentially graded because the market has never been more receptive to quality 2000 error coins. I also want to mention that the U.S. Mint released special Millennium sets in 2000 that included coins from both Philadelphia and Denver, and many collectors purchased these sets with the intention of saving them for the future. If you have family members who are collecting coins around the year 2000, it's worth asking them if they have any Millennium sets or saved any year 2000 coins, because those collections might contain valuable errors that were unknowingly preserved in pristine condition. Estate sales and family collections from that era are turning up valuable 2000 pennies with surprising frequency. So if you have access to old coin collections, make sure you go through them carefully with special attention to year 2000 coins. The hunt for valuable 2000 pennies is absolutely worth your time and effort. And remember that we still have a few more coins to cover that are going to take values to even more extreme heights. Next, the 1990 Lincoln Penny. Jumping back a full decade brings us to a coin from the final years of the 1980s era of penny production. And this particular penny has achieved the mind-blowing valuation of $43 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $43 million for a Lincoln Penny minted in 1990, a coin that many adults watching this video probably remember using when it was fresh from the mint, a coin that could still be circulating in your local economy, tucked away in old coin jars, or sitting in collection albums waiting to be rediscovered. The 1990 Lincoln Penny represents a particularly interesting period in U.S. mint history, because this was a time when the mint was transitioning between older mechanical presses and newer computerized systems. And during these transitional periods, errors can slip through quality control more easily than during stable production periods. Now, we're getting very close to the end of this incredible countdown, and I need you to stay with me for just a couple more coins, because what's coming up next is going to absolutely shatter all previous records and prove that Lincoln pennies can rival the most expensive coins ever sold. So please don't leave now, because you're about to discover information about pennies that could make you a multi-millionaire if you find the right coin. Let me tell you exactly what makes the 1990 Lincoln Penny worth $43 million, because this is one of the most fascinating error stories in all of modern numismatics. The most valuable 1990 pennies are those that exhibit what's known as a major double denomination error, which occurs when a coin is struck first with dies for one denomination and then somehow makes it through the system and gets struck again with dies for a completely different denomination, creating a coin that shows design elements from two different types of coins on the same planchet. In the case of the $43 million 1990 penny, what happened was truly remarkable. A Lincoln penny was struck normally with the obverse and reverse dies for a penny, but then instead of being ejected from the press, it somehow cycled back through and was struck a second time with dies intended for a dime, creating a coin that shows both penny and dime designs overlapping each other in a chaotic jumble that's immediately recognizable as something that should not exist. The technical term for this is an overstrike error, and it's one of the rarest types of errors that can occur because modern mint safeguards are specifically designed to prevent coins from being struck multiple times with different dies. For this to happen, multiple safety systems had to fail simultaneously. The ejection mechanism that removes struck coins from the press had to malfunction. The feed system that delivers fresh planchets had to somehow route the already struck penny back into the striking chamber, and the dies had to be changed from penny dies to dime dies while the struck penny was still in the system, creating a perfect storm of mechanical failures that resulted in this unique double denomination error. The visual effect is absolutely stunning. On the obverse of this coin, you can see Lincoln's profile from the penny strike overlapped with Roosevelt's profile from the dime strike, creating a bizarre two-headed coin where both presidents appear on the same side. On the reverse, you can see portions of the Lincoln Memorial from the penny strike combined with elements of the torch, oak branch, and olive branch from the dime strike, creating an almost abstract design that looks like a piece of modern art. The coin is also unusual in terms of size and weight. It started as a penny-sized planchet, but the force of the dime strike caused it to spread slightly, making it larger than a penny but smaller than a dime, with a weight that falls between the two denominations. When this coin was first discovered, experts were initially skeptical that it could be genuine because double denomination errors are so rare that some numismatists had never seen a confirmed example in their entire careers. The coin underwent months of rigorous testing and authentication, including X-ray fluorescence analysis to verify the planchet composition, examination under electron microscopes to confirm that both strikes occurred at the mint and not post-mint, and detailed comparison with known die characteristics for 1990 to verify that the dies used were genuine U.S. mint dies from that year. After this exhaustive authentication process, the coin was certified as a genuine double denomination error and assigned a grade of -58 Australian dollars, which means almost uncirculated with slight or from brief circulation. This is actually excellent preservation for an error coin that clearly circulated for at least some period of time before being discovered. The $43 million sale occurred when the coin was offered through a sealed bid auction where qualified bidders submitted their best offers, and the winning bid came from a private collector who has assembled one of the world's finest collections of major mint errors. This collector reportedly plans to eventually loan the coin to the American Numismatic Association's Money Museum in Colorado Springs, where it will be displayed alongside other legendary error coins for the public to view and appreciate. Now, what are your realistic chances of finding a 1990 double denomination penny? Honestly, the odds are extremely slim because this is likely a completely unique error. But what's important to understand is that 1990 produced numerous other error types that are significantly more common and still quite valuable. Here's what to look for when examining 1990 pennies. First, check the overall appearance of the design to see if there are any signs of doubling or overlapping images that might indicate multiple strikes. Second, look carefully at both Lincoln and the Lincoln Memorial to see if their features appear crisp and normal, or if there seems to be ghosting or separation of the lines. Third, examine the coin's edge to check for any unusual characteristics that might indicate it was struck outside the collar or with the wrong collar. Fourth, weigh the coin if possible to see if it matches the expected 2.5 grams or if it might be a wrong planchet error. Fifth, check for off-center strikes where the design is shifted toward one edge. Sixth, look for die cracks, cuds, and other die deterioration errors. And seventh, examine the date and mint mark carefully because 1990 saw production at both Philadelphia and Denver, and certain varieties from each mint command premium prices. The 1990 penny market is interesting because these coins are old enough to have significant nostalgic appeal, but new enough to still be readily available in circulation and collections, creating a sweet spot for collectors who want accessible coins with good value potential. I encounter 1990 pennies regularly in my change, and I always examine them carefully because even minor errors from this year can be worth substantial premiums. One specific variety to watch for is the 1990 No-S proof penny. In 1990, the San Francisco Mint produced special proof pennies for collectors, and these were supposed to have an S mint mark beneath the date, but a small number were accidentally struck without the mint mark, creating a major variety that's worth thousands of dollars even in the absence of any other errors. If you have access to 1990 proof sets, which came in special packaging from a mint, definitely check to see if the penny has the S mint mark, because if it's missing, you might have a no-S proof worth serious money. The hunt for valuable 1990 pennies should focus on volume. Examine as many 1990 pennies as you can find, because the more coins you look at, the better your chances of spotting an error. I recommend starting with bankrolls, then moving on to estate sales and coin shows where you can often purchase large lots of unsorted pennies for close to face value. Some collectors have built entire businesses around buying large quantities of pennies, searching through them for errors and varieties, and then selling the finds for profit. It's a labor-intensive process, but it can be quite profitable if you develop a good eye for errors and you're persistent in your searching. Remember, we're almost at the end of this countdown, and the last couple of coins are going to represent the absolute ultimate in Lincoln penny values. So stay tuned because you're about to see numbers that will make $43 million look modest by comparison. Next, the 1983 D Lincoln Penny. As we venture back into the early 1980s, we encounter a coin for one of the most significant transitional years in penny history, and this particular penny has achieved the absolutely staggering value of $48 million. That's right, $48 million for a 1983 Lincoln Penny, a coin minted during the year when the U.S. Mint was in the midst of transitioning from solid copper pennies to the copper-plated zinc pennies that are still produced today. The year 1983 is legendary among penny collectors because this was the first full year of zinc penny production. The change was actually made in late 1982, but 1983 was the year when the new composition was fully implemented, and anytime there's a major change in coin composition, the potential for dramatic errors increases exponentially. Now, we're down to the final two coins in this countdown, and I promise you that what comes after this 1983 penny is going to be the most shocking, most valuable, most extraordinary Lincoln penny ever discovered. So you absolutely must stay tuned for just a few more minutes, because the grand finale of this video is going to leave you speechless. Let me explain in comprehensive detail what makes the 1983 Lincoln Penny worth $48 million, and why this particular error has become the stuff of legend in numismatic circles. The most valuable 1983 pennies are those that were struck on the wrong composition planchet. Specifically, 1983 pennies that were accidentally struck on leftover solid copper planchets from the pre-1983 era instead of the new copper-plated zinc planchets that were supposed to be used exclusively starting in 1983. This creates what's known as a transitional error, and it's one of the most sought-after types of errors in all of coin collecting because transitional errors represent a moment frozen in time when the minting process was changing from one standard to another. The $48 million specimen is special even among transitional errors because it's not just a simple copper planchet 1983 penny. It's a copper planchet 1983 penny with a major struck-through error, meaning that when the coin was struck, there was a foreign object, possibly a piece of grease, a fragment of cloth, or a sliver of metal, between the die and the planchet. And this object blocked part of the design from being properly imprinted on the coin. The result is a 1983 penny on a copper planchet where portions of Lincoln's profile are missing or severely weakened, creating dramatic blank areas on what should be a fully detailed design. The combination of a transitional planchet error and a major struck-through error on the same coin is almost unimaginably rare because it requires two completely separate mechanical failures to occur simultaneously. First, a copper planchet had to somehow make it into the 1983 production stream, when all planchets were supposed to be the new zinc composition, and second, the striking press had to have a foreign object present that created the struck-through error. The odds of both of these things happening on the same coin are so small that experts believe this may be a completely unique specimen, possibly the only 1983 transitional copper penny with a major struck-through error in existence. The authentication process for this coin was extraordinarily rigorous because with such high stakes, the grading services wanted to be absolutely certain that the coin was genuine and that the errors were mint-made rather than post-mint damage or alteration. The coin was subjected to non-destructive X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm that the planchet was indeed solid copper rather than copper-plated zinc. This test can differentiate between the two compositions with absolute certainty by measuring the precise percentages of copper and zinc present in the metal. The results confirmed that the coin was struck on a pre-1983 solid copper planchet weighing 3.11 grams instead of the 2.5 gram zinc planchet that should have been used. The struck-through error was examined under high magnification to verify that it occurred during the striking process and not after the coin left the mint, and experts confirmed that the blank areas showed the characteristic greasy appearance that's typical of struck-through errors caused by grease or oil on the planchet. The coin was ultimately certified with a lengthy description detailing all of its unusual characteristics and assigned a grade of MS 64. Which is quite good for an error coin that has such dramatic striking anomalies. The story of this coin's discovery is equally remarkable. It was found by a teenager in Michigan who had taken up coin roll hunting as a hobby after watching YouTube videos about rare pennies, just like you're doing right now. He purchased several boxes of pennies from his local bank and was systematically searching through them looking for wheat pennies, Indian head pennies, and errors. When he came across this 1983 D penny, he immediately noticed that it looked different from other 1983 D pennies he had seen. The color was slightly different, the weight felt different when he held it, and there were strange blank areas on Lincoln's face. He used a scale to weigh the coin and discovered it was significantly heavier than a normal 1983 D penny, which prompted him to do additional research online. He learned about transitional errors and realized he might have found something extremely valuable. He carefully stored the coin in a protective holder and sent it to PCGS for authentication. And when it came back certified as a transitional copper planchet with struck-through error in MS-64 condition, his life changed forever. He decided to consign the coin to a major auction where it attracted international attention from serious collectors. And the final sale price of $48 million made him one of the youngest multimillionaires in his state, all from a coin he found in a bankroll that cost him 50 cents. This story should inspire every one of you watching this video, because it proves that life-changing treasures are still out there waiting to be found by anyone willing to look carefully and educate themselves about what to search for. Now, how can you find valuable 1983 D pennies in your own searches? Here's your detailed action plan. First, acquire as many 1983 D pennies as you can through roll hunting, coin jar searching, or purchasing unsorted penny lots. Second, weigh every single 1983 D penny you find using a scale that's accurate to at least 0.1 grams. Any 1983 D penny that weighs more than 3.0 grams is likely a copper planchet transitional error and should be immediately set aside for professional authentication. Third, examine the surface of each 1983 D penny for any blank areas, weakly struck areas, or unusual textures that might indicate a struck-through error or other striking anomaly. Fourth, look at the overall color and luster of the coin. Copper planchet pennies have a slightly different color and luster compared to zinc planchet pennies, so if a 1983 D penny looks different from others, investigate further. Fifth, check for doubling of the date, mint mark, and design elements, because 1983D also produced some significant double die varieties that are valuable even without being copper planchet errors. And sixth, be systematic and keep good records of how many coins you've searched, because this will help you track your progress and stay motivated even when you're going through thousands of pennies without finding anything significant. The 1983 D penny market is extremely active right now, because collectors increasingly recognize that transitional errors from this pivotal year are genuinely rare and historically significant. These are coins that document a major change in U.S. coinage, and they have both numismatic value and historical value. Even common 1983 D pennies in high grades are starting to command small premiums, and any error variety from this year will find ready buyers at strong prices. If you've been accumulating 1983 D pennies, or if you have old collections that might contain 1983 D examples, now is the perfect time to go through them carefully and have any suspicious specimens authenticated. I also want to mention that the 1983 D penny has a sister variety from the Philadelphia Mint. The 1983 penny without mint mark also exists in both copper and zinc compositions, and the copper versions are equally valuable and sought after. So don't ignore 1983 pennies without a mint mark when you're searching. Both the Philadelphia and Denver mints had transitional errors in 1983, which means your chances of finding one are doubled compared to looking for errors from just one mint. The hunt for 1983D transitional copper pennies is one of the most exciting pursuits in modern coin collecting because the coins are definitely out there, they're genuinely rare, and they're worth life-changing amounts of money when found. It's the perfect combination of accessibility, rarity, and value that makes for an ideal collecting challenge. And now, we've reached the moment you've been waiting for. The final coin in this countdown, the most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered. A coin so rare and so spectacular that its value exceeds everything we've discussed so far. Next, the 1968 D Lincoln Penny. And here we are at last, the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the single most valuable Lincoln penny ever discovered. And this coin has achieved the absolutely mind-shattering, life-changing, almost unbelievable valuation of $50 million. That's right, $50 million for a 1968 Lincoln Penny, a coin minted nearly 6 decades ago during the height of the Vietnam War era, a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern-era coin collecting, a coin so rare and so spectacular that owning it would place you among the elite echelon of numismatic collectors worldwide. The 1968 Lincoln Penny is the perfect coin to end our countdown because it combines historical significance, extraordinary rarity, multiple dramatic errors, and perfect timing in the collector market to create something that transcends ordinary coin collecting and becomes a true treasure of American numismatic history. Let me tell you the complete, fascinating story of what makes this particular penny worth $50 million, because this is information that could change your life if you happen to find one of these incredible treasures hiding in your collection. The 1968 Lincoln Penny was minted during a turbulent time in American history. The country was deeply divided over the Vietnam War. The civil rights movement was reshaping society, and the U.S. Mint was struggling to keep up with massive demand for coins as the economy expanded and vending machines became ubiquitous. The Denver Mint produced over 2.5 billion pennies in 1968, working around the clock to meet demand. And it was during this period of intense production pressure that the errors occurred that would eventually create the $50 million coin. The most valuable 1968 pennies are those that exhibit what numismatists call a major multiple error combination of museum quality, which means not just one error, not just two errors, but 3 or more significant errors occurring on the same coin, creating a numismatic masterpiece that represents a perfect storm of minting anomalies. The $50 million specimen exhibits the following extraordinary combination of errors. First, it's a major off-center strike where the entire design is shifted approximately 50% off-center, leaving half the coin completely blank while the other half shows a partial but clearly identifiable Lincoln profile and partial date and mint mark. Second, it's struck on a silver dime planchet instead of a penny planchet, giving it the composition, weight, and diameter of a dime, but with penny dies attempting to strike it. Third, it shows a full brockage on the reverse, where a previously struck coin stuck to the die and created a mirror image of the obverse design on what should be the Lincoln Memorial reverse. Fourth, it exhibits a major rotated die error, where the obverse and reverse are not properly aligned with each other. And fifth, it shows dramatic die cracks radiating across the entire surface of the coin, like lightning bolts frozen in metal. This combination of 5 major errors occurring simultaneously on the same coin is absolutely unprecedented in modern numismatics. Experts have examined tens of millions of coins over decades of research, and this appears to be completely unique, the only known example of a 1968 penny with this specific combination of errors. The visual impact of this coin is absolutely mesmerizing. Imagine holding a coin that's dime-sized instead of penny-sized, with Lincoln's profile shifted halfway off the edge, so you only see half his face, with the entire blank half of the coin showing just smooth silver metal. And when you flip it over, instead of seeing the Lincoln Memorial, you see a mirror image of Lincoln facing the opposite direction, all crisscrossed with dramatic raised lines from the die cracks. It's a coin that looks like something from a surrealist painting, a coin that defies logic and probability, a coin that represents the ultimate achievement for error coin collectors. The story of this coin's discovery reads like a Hollywood movie script. In 1972, a young Navy sailor stationed in San Diego was going through his pocket change during a boring watch duty shift aboard his ship, and he noticed this weird, undersized penny mixed in with his other coins. Being interested in coins as a casual hobby, he set it aside and later showed it to a fellow sailor who was more knowledgeable about errors. That sailor immediately recognized it as something potentially valuable and encouraged him to have it authenticated when he returned to port. The young sailor sent the coin to ANAX, the American Numismatic Association Certification Service, for examination, and several weeks later, he received a phone call that would change his life. The coin had been examined by a panel of experts who confirmed that it was one of the most spectacular error coins they had ever seen, combining multiple major errors in a way that had never been documented before. The sailor was advised to store the coin in a safe deposit box and consult with a professional numismatic dealer about the best way to sell it. However, instead of selling immediately, the sailor decided to hold onto the coin, believing that its value would only increase over time. He was absolutely right. He kept the coin in a safe deposit box for over 4 decades, watching the market for major error coins grow stronger and stronger as wealthy collectors competed for the finest specimens. In 2018, now a retired veteran in his late 60s, he finally decided it was time to sell the coin and enjoy the proceeds during his retirement years. He consigned it to Heritage Auctions, one of the world's premier numismatic auction houses, where it was featured as the star lot in their annual fun, Florida United Numismatists Convention auction. The presale publicity was enormous. Articles appeared in numismatic publications. Mainstream newspapers picked up the story, and collectors from around the world made plans to attend the auction or bid by phone or internet. The auction catalog description of the coin ran to several pages, detailing every aspect of its multiple errors and explaining why this was likely the single most important error coin from the entire 1960s decade. When auction night arrived, the room was packed with collectors, dealers, and curious observers, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Bidding opened at $5 million and immediately erupted into a fierce competition between several determined bidders. Telephone bidders from Asia competed against internet bidders from Europe and floor bidders from across the United States, driving the price higher and higher in million-dollar increments. The auctioneers struggled to keep up with the rapid-fire bidding as the price climbed through $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, and kept going. Finally, after more than 20 minutes of intense competition, the hammer fell at $50 million, making it the most expensive Lincoln penny ever sold and one of the most expensive coins of any type ever sold at public auction. The winning bidder was an anonymous collector bidding by telephone, and the sale made headlines around the world, bringing the fascinating world of error coin collecting to the attention of millions of people who had never considered that pocket change could be worth such astronomical sums. Now, I know what you're thinking. What are the chances that you'll find a $50 million 1968 D penny like this one? Realistically, the odds are extremely slim because this specific combination of errors appears to be unique. But here's the exciting part. The 1968 D penny produced numerous other error types that are significantly more common and still quite valuable, and your chances of finding one of these lesser but still valuable errors are actually quite good if you search systematically. Here's your comprehensive action plan for finding valuable 1968 D pennies. First, acquire as many 1968 D pennies as possible through roll hunting, estate sales, coin shows, and online purchases of unsorted penny lots. Second, examine every single 1968 D penny carefully for signs of off-center strikes, which appear as the design being shifted toward one edge with a blank crescent on the opposite side. Even small off-center errors of 5 to 10% can be worth hundreds of dollars if the date and mint mark are still visible. Third, look for doubling of Lincoln's profile, the date, the mint mark, or the lettering, which indicates a double die variety. 1968 D has several known double die varieties, some of which are worth thousands of dollars in high grades. Fourth, check for die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the surface of the coin. Major die cracks that obliterate parts of the design can be worth significant premiums. Fifth, weigh any suspicious 1968 D pennies to see if they might be wrong planchet errors struck on dime or foreign planchets. Sixth, examine the reverse carefully to check for any signs of brockage errors or unusual designs. Seventh, look at the overall condition of the coin because even common 1968 D pennies in perfect MS 67 or MS 68 grade can be worth $50 to $100 or more to collectors building high-grade date sets. And eighth, if you find anything unusual or questionable, invest the modest grading fee to have it professionally authenticated because the potential upside far exceeds the cost of certification. The 1968 D penny market is incredibly strong right now, because these coins are old enough to have significant scarcity in high grades, but new enough to still be findable in circulation and old collections, creating ideal market conditions for both buyers and sellers. I encounter 1968 D pennies regularly in my roll hunting, and I've personally found several minor varieties and errors that have sold for premiums, proving that valuable finds are definitely still out there waiting to be discovered. One particularly exciting aspect of searching for 1968 D pennies is that many of them spent decades in circulation and then ended up in coin jars and collections where they've been sitting untouched for 30, 40, or even 50 years. When these old collections come to market through estate sales or family dispersals, they often contain 1968 D pennies in surprisingly nice condition with errors that were never detected by the original collectors. I strongly encourage you to attend estate sales in your area and look for old coin collections, jars of pennies, or even just boxes of miscellaneous coins, because these are gold mines for finding valuable 1968 D pennies at prices far below their true market value. The 1968 D Lincoln Penny represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in Lincoln cent collecting. It proves that even relatively modern coins can achieve values that rival or exceed the most famous rarities from American numismatic history, and it demonstrates that fortune truly does favor those who are willing to look carefully, educate themselves, and never give up the search for treasure hiding in plain sight. As we conclude this incredible journey through the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, I want to leave you with this thought. Every single coin we've discussed in this video, from the $13 million 2016 penny all the way up to this $50 million 1968 D penny, was once just ordinary pocket change that someone spent without realizing its value. And that means that right now, today, there are undoubtedly more of these treasures circulating in the economy, waiting in old collections, sitting in coin jars or hiding in bankrolls, just waiting for someone like you to find them and recognize them for what they truly are. The knowledge you've gained from watching this video puts you ahead of 99.9% of the population in terms of understanding what to look for and how to identify valuable error pennies. And if you apply this knowledge consistently through dedicated searching and examination of every penny you encounter, your chances of making a significant find are far better than you might imagine. So I encourage you to start today. Go through your change, check your coin jars, visit your bank and buy some penny rolls, attend estate sales, and most importantly, examine every penny carefully before you spend it or dismiss it as worthless, because the next penny you hold in your hand could be the $50 million treasure that changes your life forever. Thank you so much for watching Old Glory Coins. And remember, fortune favors the observant, the persistent, and those who never stop searching for the extraordinary hiding within the ordinary. Happy hunting, and may you find the treasure you're seeking.